If we've got the capability to earn six figures in corporate, we've got the capability to earn that in a self-employed capacity too. People are always asking me how I made the leap from corporate to becoming a coach. And when I tell the story, it can sound quite bold. But the truth is, it wasn't just one moment. It was years of working in corporate transformation and noticing the patterns in people and organisations, and slowly realising that what fascinated me most wasn't the process or the strategy, it was the people. It was really looking at what was happening in their thinking and the things that were holding them back, and why capable people stayed stuck. And that curiosity eventually led me into setting up my own coaching business.
So what did your corporate career look like?
Well, I mean, it started, if I'm honest, in hotels. So I was initially the head of conference and banqueting in a hotel in the Lake District. And I very quickly worked out that that wasn't going to be a long-term career choice for me. So I went into banking and had a 20-year career in financial services with a specialism in business transformation. So it was very much about looking at what was happening now and how we could make it better, and that continuous improvement of the way that things worked. But what really struck me in my corporate career is, although the process was important and the ways of working too, it was also about how the people engaged with the change and how they felt on the way through it. I quickly rose to the top. I was one of those people who got promoted literally within 5 minutes of being in an organisation. And I found myself on the board of a large corporation before moving into consulting. So it was a career full of change, full of managing people, and lots of different roller coaster moments along the way.
What types of roles did you have in your career?
Well, lots of different ones, really. I would be something called a lean coach, which was about going into operations and looking at the way people responded to change and helping them with that. At one point, I was the operations manager for contact centres across South Wales and the south of England for Lloyds Banking Group. And then I got really stuck into the transformational roles. So had head of change roles, head of transformation, before becoming the business excellence director for a large organisation called Compass Group, and then working as an associate director in consulting.
What sort of environments did you work in?
Quite disparate environments. I mean, I went from, when I was 17, running a small branch for the Royal Bank of Scotland. I mean, talk about being a swimming swan. I had no idea what I was doing. And then in the contact centres, those were bustling environments with sort of hundreds of people answering complaint calls. So it was really vibrant. And then I had teams all over the country in my larger roles. So I would be out on the road visiting them. And for Compass Group, we had 60,000 employees in the UK alone. So whilst I was based from our head office in Chertsey, I would be out and about, going back to the floor and really understanding the problems in the organisation through the eyes of our people.
What did you enjoy about it?
Well, it's always going to be about the people for me. I loved going and talking to the people who were doing the work to serve our customers, the ones that really understood what the organisation needed from the clients and customers' point of view. And they always held the key to what the major improvements were. It never happened in the boardroom for me, because often the leaders were so far removed from the coalface. So I loved going out and meeting the people in all the organisations I worked in. I'm really building relationships with my team so that we had a really high trust environment where they could thrive.
What did you find frustrating?
Oh my goodness, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the fact that you had to get decision by consensus a lot of the time. But I think for the most part for me, it was the toxicity of the organisations, not all over, but in pockets. You had people who really needed to control. You had people who would treat others in a way that wasn't conducive with high trust. And I used to be able to see that. I used to see the behaviour patterns. Back then, I didn't understand why they were driven to behave in that way, like the way that I do now. but I always found it frustrating and also sometimes quite hurtful to see the way that people were treated.
What did you start noticing about people and their behaviour in organisations?
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? I don't think I was aware of it like I am now back then, but you'd notice the people shrinking back. You'd notice the ones that wouldn't speak up in the meeting. You'd notice the corridor conversations that happened as a result of that. I could always see the people who were on the edge of brilliance, but masking it with things like perfectionism. I'd see the people pleasers because I was one. So the people that would say yes, those that were staying late at night because they felt that that's what they had to do because the boss was there. Lots of behaviours that were driven by patterns that were actually nothing to do with the workplace and everything to do with who they were and the conditioning that they'd had along the way. I just wish I'd been able to join the dots back then with the education that I've got now about people and behaviour, because I think I would have been able to make much more of a difference back then.
So when did coaching first appear on your radar?
Oh, wow. Well, 2004, I went on my first ever coaching course. It was definitely a Grow Model style one. It was as part of a Lloyds Banking Group course that I was sent on. And even then, if I'm honest, it didn't ever make sense to me, because starting with where the client is at and thinking about how they need to become better, what goals they want to set, always made it feel to me like there was something wrong with the person. And actually what I've learned over time is that we need to go back and understand the root causes of the behaviour patterns. And that was never part of the Grow model. But it really did start for me there, and I became that person in the organisation that people would come to share their stuff, and I'd always find out so much more about people than maybe the average person would. In 2007, 8, I was a lean coach, so that was going in and helping people adapt to change and think about their journey through that. But I did my first official coaching qualification, if you like, at Cambridge University, and that was in 2018.
So what made coaching interesting to you?
I think it's the person within the conversation. I loved what could happen in the flow between coach and client if it was done in what I call an I'm okay, you're okay way. So taking that from transactional analysis. So the coach isn't better than the client isn't sitting there in their own journey and the coach's objective from it. I very much believe in co-creation. And so when we come at coaching from the I'm okay, you're okay way, then great things can happen. And that's the bit that I absolutely love about coaching.
When did you start thinking about leaving corporate?
To be honest, I did that many times over the years. I think somebody who's got ADHD, being like a square peg in a round hole, I often felt like I didn't fit in the corporate setting, and found that I had to put a mask on in order to do that. And masking is exhausting. So when you're wearing the people pleaser mask and you're trying to be everything to everyone, there's a cost to that. And I'd go through cycles of burnout, and each time I'd think, I need to leave. And what I noticed was, as my career progressed, I was spending less and less time in any one part of the organisation. Now, sometimes that was because of promotion, but other times that was me escaping from something. And then the final thing came really in 2016 when I resigned from my leadership role in Compass, which was really on a whim. And then I jumped into consulting, frying pan to fire, and did 2.5 years in consulting and realised enough was enough.
Did you worry about money or stability?
Oh my goodness, yeah, because at the time when I left my consulting role, I was earning a really good 6-figure salary with a huge bonus. So that's not easily replaced. And there was a lot of identity wrapped up in my job role as well. So, being a director felt like it was the pinnacle of everything that I was trying to achieve. The decision I made, I think, when I left was a really important one. And that was the decision that I was going to earn the same amount of money being self-employed. I'd not figured out that I was going to be a coach at that point, but I knew that whatever came next, it wasn't going to affect my lifestyle from a monetary point of view. And I really think that's a key decision for anyone leaving an organization, because we don't start from scratch, from zero salary. If we've got the capability to earn six figures in corporate, we've got the capability to earn that in a self-employed capacity too.
What conversations did you have with family or friends?
That's such a funny question, because none is the answer to that. When I first resigned from Compass, as I say, it was on a whim. I was at a leadership meeting and a decision had been made that didn't sit with my values. And it was the morning of the meeting. At morning break, I resigned. At lunchtime break, I reinforced the fact that I was resigning, and that was that. I did 3 months of gardening leave and left that organisation. No conversation with family. And then it was the same with consulting. There was this bubble inside me that I knew I couldn't carry on doing what I was doing, but I'd not really discussed that. And I remember on the day that I resigned, I got in my car, and I hated the car, by the way. I had an Audi TT, which I kind of had because everybody had cars like that in consulting, but I hated it. And I was driving home in this car that I hated, and I rang my husband and I said, I've resigned today. And he was like, oh, Suzanne again. And I said, don't worry, whatever I do next, and I don't know what that is, but whatever I do, it won't affect our lifestyle, and I promise you that. And he just said, just do whatever you need to do to feel happy. So it wasn't a conversation up front, but thankfully I've got a very supportive husband and family.
Did anyone think you were mad?
I think maybe some people thought I was mad, but also some people were like, yes, go and do it. And I wish I could too. So I think the words that people use are things like courageous, and they'll say to me, I couldn't do that you've done. I think everybody could do that. There are a few people in my sort of smaller circle that thought I was mad because they knew the lifestyle that my job allowed me to have. But I think now they look at what I've achieved and go, no, you weren't mad. You were absolutely sane to make that decision.
So what were the first steps you took?
Well, so that conversation in the car with my husband, I got home and I had no idea what I was going to do. So I'd been sort of thinking things through in the journey home from Oxford to what was then Bedfordshire. And I got in and I got this flip chart out. And I wrote down what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, 2 columns on the flip chart pad. And I started to stick Post-it notes on this about all of the things that I was good at and not good at. And then when I'd got that list, I looked at the what I'm good at list, and I realised there was lots of things on there that I was good at, but I actually didn't enjoy. So I applied the principle of what brings me joy, what lights me up, what makes me feel at my best, rather than that swimming swan feeling that I mentioned earlier. And so what I did was circle all the things that I was good at and brought me joy. And there was a real connectivity between those things, which was about managing people through change, coaching, mentoring, really getting under the skin of what's really going on, finding those root causes, and helping those to change. And so for me, the big thing that came out of that was I need to be a coach.
What surprised you about starting a coaching career?
I guess how easy it was, because I literally then the next day, still on gardening leave, set up my LinkedIn properly and set up my Instagram and just said, I'm becoming a coach. I've got this package. It's just a 90-minute session. You can book in. And it was as simple as that. And I remember within about half an hour of posting that post, I had a lady contact me and say that she wanted to have a session. And I just couldn't believe that it was as easy as that. I didn't need a website. I didn't need a qualification, which I don't agree with, by the way. I literally set up as a coach without a formal qualification. And there were people in my network that trusted me enough to know that I would be able to add value. And it was as easy as that.
What mistake taught you the most?
Oh, God. I mean, there's been so many mistakes along the way, from, the coaches that I've chosen that just haven't really been aligned to the way that I work, mistakes with different things that I invest in, whether they be courses or whether they be tech. There's always something there. But I think the biggest mistake for me was pretty much at the beginning of my self-employed career was trying to be something that I'm not. So taking the masking from corporate and bringing that into the coaching room and putting a lot of pressure on myself to be the perfect coach. Now, I teach coaches now, and one of the principles that I teach as part of the coaching journey is that we are always a good enough coach. And actually being a perfect coach really turns off your client and doesn't create the flow of I'm okay, you're okay. So I just wish I'd learned that sooner, because coaching is so much more enjoyable when you take the pressure off your shoulders.
If you could go back and speak to the version of you before you went into coaching, what would you tell you?
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Maybe that she doesn't need to be led. So whilst I had really responsible roles in corporate, there was always somebody else leading the way, be it the MD or the CEO or whoever. And I think from that perspective, I always felt quite safe because there was somebody else at the helm, ultimately. I would tell that version of Angela that she is very capable of leading herself. And if she can tune into her intuition and run her business that way, it will always be fine. Looking back now, the move from corporate into coaching was one of the most important decisions of my life. And not because it was easy, but because it really did allow me to follow the work that I was genuinely curious about. And that curiosity eventually led to something much bigger, which became the Poseda 360 methodology. And that's a story for another video.